Signal priorities, because also in California, you might have recall a news story from last year. There was some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California, and the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters. So we have DEI, we have budget cuts, and yet I'm wondering now, if your house is burning down, how much do you care what color the firefighters
you
are?
can respond, and then we'll...
Listen, I am so tired. You know what? There was an article that just came out that said that actually the most educated demographic in this country right now is Black women. So let me be clear. Because you are a woman, or because I know that some of the right has been sharing these photos of the fact that I believe that the fire chief may be a woman or something, that has nothing to do with it. We are looking at qualifications. What diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been about is saying, you know what? Open this up. Don't just look at the white men. Open it up and recognize that other people can be qualified. And the fact that we want to, at a time when people are dying, decide that a country of immigrants is failing, or people are dying because the same very people that built this country, because the last time I checked, y'all didn't say that anything was wrong with the White House, and I can promise you it was my ancestors that built the White House. So listen, if we have been good enough to build this country, we are good enough to serve and die overseas, we are good enough to serve in other ways. And the fact that people actually decide that they want to engage in public service, whether it's sitting in Congress or whether it's serving on the fire department or the police department, should not be an issue. The fact
Good morning, YouTube. So I wanted to make a video regarding this story. As you can see, I posted the video before I did this commentary. The topic that they were talking about the wildfires in California. And we had Jasmine Crockett on the panel. We had Scott Jennings on the panel. I forgot the other woman's name. Oh, I can't believe I forgot her name. But she's extremely intelligent. She's a very intelligent woman. She is a congressperson. She's a congressperson for Hawaii. And they were having a conversation about DEI. And Scott basically was saying that DEI was the reason for these, basically because the way that the fires had gotten out of control, it was because of DEI practices, which is absolutely asinine. And Jasmine just basically had to go to work. So you guys know I'm a huge fan of Jasmine Crockett, and I love when she's on these panels, because a lot of the narratives that are being pushed regarding DEI and people. Now, let me take a step back for people who do not know. DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. It does not mean didn't earn it. It does not mean you are not qualified. It does not mean you do not have the credentials. Basically, the reason DEI was implemented, the reason DEI was put into place, is to basically rectify the disparities and the injustices that we have in our system. There's people that are qualified, people that have the credentials, that are not being looked at for these roles because of the inherent racism we have in our system. So it does not mean that we're taking people and putting them into jobs that they do not deserve. It's basically saying that for certain jobs, people will just look at one pool of people. And DEI is saying you have to look at everyone that's qualified. So it's basically, you can't just hire people who look like you, or people who you're more comfortable around, or people you have nice feelings about. You have to hire people who are qualified. You have to open the pool so everybody can have a chance and have access to these type of opportunities and these type of roles. And so what Jasmine was basically saying is, we like to basically insinuate that a person of color or a Black person cannot work in a White House, or if they are there, they're there because of DEI. Because this is how bad this thing has gotten. This conversation is about, if you are Black, if you are a brown person and you are in a role of leadership, or if you're working in a White House, the assumption is that you're here because of DEI, or you're here because of affirmative action. People automatically jump to that conclusion. When they look at a black person or they look at a person of color in a high role, like the person is a congressperson or whatever the case, Congress people are, let me take that back, because Congress people are elected. But if you're looking at a person that's in a high leadership manager position, you're looking at them as if you're here because of DEI, because we had to meet some kind of quota. You're not here because of qualifications. You're not here because of your educational background or your work experience. You're here because someone gave you an opportunity instead of you earned the opportunity. And so Jasmine Crockett was basically saying, because our ancestors built this country for free. And so she was basically saying, so if my ancestors was good enough to build a White House, but they can't work in the White House. Like, the ideology is you are here to serve. Your job is to be a service person. If you are black or brown, your job is to serve and to work with your hands. But anything that requires intelligence or anything like that, oh, someone gave you that opportunity. They had to meet a quota, and that's the reason that you are in those jobs. And so this conversation about DEI is going to be a conversation that we're going to be having for 4 years, because what the Trump administration is doing is every time you take a person who is a person of color, a black person, a person of LGBTQ, that's in the LGBTQ community, they automatically jump to DEI. Regardless of the person's credentials, regardless to what school they went to, regardless to how many jobs they had, regardless of their experience, they automatically think you're here because somebody was being nice to you and they gave you an opportunity. Not that you earned it, not that you're qualified, not that you are. This conversation is so frustrating, because whenever I watch these clips or whenever I watch the news, I can hear the bigotry. I can hear the racism. I can hear this ideal that in order to be looked upon as someone who deserves something, that's for white people. If you're black, you got it because somebody did you a favor. Somebody looked out for you, or they had to meet a quota. And the reason, and see, this is the whole thing about affirmative action. Affirmative action was more in line with like quotas, but it was because black and brown people who were qualified were not given these opportunities. So affirmative action came in and said, okay, you have to at least hire 10 black people. You have to at least hire 10 people of color, because you're not hiring these people just based off merit or based off qualifications. So now we have to put in systems and programs to rectify these people not being hired even though they are qualified. So now the whole argument with DEI affirmative action is almost like, oh yeah, you're only here because of this quota. Not the fact that you're qualified. And so Scott Jennings is, he's a political commentator for CNN. He's a Republican. He's not a strategist. He's just a Republican commentator. But when he speaks, he does it in a way that is so intellectually dishonest, because his premise starts from DEI means unqualified. And that's not what it means. It's the same thing they did with the whole, when they had defund the police. When you say defund, because right now they're trying to defund the Department of Education and nobody's making a huge fuss about it. But when people were saying defund the police, what they basically mean is to reimagine how the police is being funded, not to take resources away from the police. And people are not understanding that, because it's like they hear a word and they automatically, oh, well, you don't want to fund the police. That's not what it means. It means to reimagine the police, how the police are being funded. It doesn't mean to take funds away from them. But right now, the Trump administration is actively trying to defund the Department of Education, and nobody's making a huge fuss about that. It's the same thing with DEI. DEI means diversity, equity, inclusion. It don't mean didn't earn it, because you still have to have the qualifications. You still have to have the degrees. You still have to have the work experience. So it's not a matter of you giving me anything. You're not giving me, you're giving me an opportunity. You're opening up the pool, so you're not only looking at white people, you're looking at everyone. Because we're supposed to live in a country that everyone is given the chance at these opportunities. And because for a very long time, that was not the case, that everybody was given the same equal opportunity to get a particular job or whatever, now we have to put in systems to rectify the old systems that weren't allowing certain people in these spaces. Why is this difficult for people? Like, why is this difficult for people? You cannot work at a job that requires you to have a degree and not have a degree. You can't not have the degree because you're black. You still have to have the degree. You still have to meet the qualifications. So how are you giving me anything? These people. Child. Because I watch these clips and I'm like, what? Scott, did you just insinuate that the fires was because, what he say, he's saying the leadership. So he's not accusing the fire department of not doing its job or allowing the fires to get out of control. He's saying the politicians in California, or whatever the case. Now, you can have your own issues regarding politicians and what side you're on, but I'm talking about blaming DEI for everything. Are you automatically assuming that because the woman, Karen Bass, because she's black, you're automatically assuming she's not qualified for that position and she's DEI, and it's the reason why the fires got out of hand? Are you serious? Are you seriously saying that? It's so very frustrating. It's so very frustrating. But I seen this clip and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta share. It's imperative that I share, because this whole thing blaming DEI for everything, like I said, DEI is just a new way to say the N-word. And when you see a person of color or a black person or a LGBTQ person in a particular role, and if your mind automatically go to DEI, you are a part of the problem. You really are. Because who is to say those people are not qualified? Have you looked up their resume? Have you looked at their prior work experience? Do you know what their qualifications are? Or are you automatically jumping to DEI because you see the color of their skin? I'm frustrated, but I'm going to calm down because today is Saturday and I'm going to enjoy my day. You guys have a phenomenal day. I'll talk to you guys later.